What if the most powerful brain repair process you have access to every single day is not happening in a hospital, not coming from a prescription, and not hidden inside expensive monthly supplements, but instead is already built into your body's natural rhythm every single night while you sleep? And what if the real deciding factor isn't just sleep itself, but something even more specific? What you eat in the final 1 to 2 hours before you close your eyes. Because according to emerging neuroscience, that small window may influence whether your brain slows down aging or actively begins repairing itself. Most people over 60 are taught a simple story that memory loss, brain fog, and cognitive decline are just normal consequences of aging, something inevitable, something you simply manage rather than reverse. But modern research is challenging that entire assumption. The aging brain is not a broken machine slowly shutting down. It is a living system that is still capable of repair, but only if it receives the right signals, the right nutrients, and the right biological conditions to activate that repair. And the most overlooked repair window of all is the period right before sleep when the brain prepares for its most important maintenance cycle of the day. Tonight, we are going to focus on 3 simple fruits. Not exotic superfoods, not expensive imported powders, just 3 accessible, scientifically studied fruits that can be found in most places and used in a very specific way. When timed correctly, these fruits can help the brain do something remarkable. They can support the clearing of toxic waste, assist in rebuilding neural connections, improve the chemistry behind memory formation, and protect the brain's internal structure from the kind of slow breakdown many people assume is unavoidable. And this isn't based on vague wellness claims. We are going to break this down at the biological level. We are talking about mitochondria, neuroinflammation, neurotrophic factors, gut-brain communication, and sleep-related brain detox systems. All of this is supported by peer-reviewed research published in journals such as Neurology, Alzheimer's, and Dementia, and Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience. Because when it comes to brain health, especially after 60, vague advice is not enough. You need mechanisms, you need timing, and you need science that translates into action. So why does this matter so much after 60? Because around this stage of life, multiple critical systems in the body begin to shift at the same time. First, there is a steady decline in a molecule called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This is essentially the brain's growth signal. It helps form new neural connections and keeps existing neurons alive and functioning. When BDNF drops, learning slows, memory weakens, and recovery becomes harder. At the same time, the brain's glymphatic system, the internal waste removal network that only fully activates during deep sleep, begins to lose efficiency. This system is responsible for flushing out metabolic waste that builds up inside brain tissue. Then there is the gut microbiome. As it changes with age, it begins producing fewer beneficial compounds that support brain chemistry, while also weakening communication through what scientists call the gut-brain axis. And finally, the mitochondria inside brain cells, the tiny energy producers responsible for powering every thought, memory, and decision, start accumulating damage faster than the brain can repair it. All of these changes are happening together silently underneath daily life. Now, here is where timing becomes critical. The glymphatic system, which acts like the brain's overnight cleaning crew, is most active during the first few hours of deep sleep. During this time, cerebrospinal fluid flows through brain tissue, clearing away harmful proteins like amyloid beta and tau, which are strongly linked to Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. If this system is disrupted by poor sleep, inflammation, alcohol, or blood sugar spikes, the cleaning process becomes less effective. But if you support it correctly, you can enhance the brain's natural detox cycle. This is why what you consume before bed matters so much more than most people realize. It is not just about calories or hunger. It is about signaling. It is about giving the brain the biochemical tools it needs at the exact moment it is preparing to repair itself. And research suggests that the ideal window for this is roughly 1 to 2 hours before sleep. In this video, we are going to break down 6 key scientific insights that explain exactly how this works. First, we'll look at how mitochondrial health inside brain cells determines memory, strength, and how certain fruit compounds directly influence this process. Second, we'll explore neuroinflammation, the hidden slow burning process inside the brain that is now considered one of the main drivers of cognitive decline. Third, we'll examine why BDNF levels drop after 60 and how specific plant compounds, especially anthocyanins, may help support or restore it. Fourth, we'll break down the serotonin to melatonin pathway and how sleep chemistry is influenced by what you eat. Fifth, we'll explore the gut-brain axis and how gut bacteria convert fruit compounds into neuroactive molecules that support brain repair overnight. And sixth, we'll look at deep slow-wave sleep, the most important phase of brain recovery, and how nutrition can influence how effectively you reach it. But before we go deeper, let's begin with something simple, something practical, and something powerful. Because the first fruit we need to understand is one that most people already know, but very few people understand at the biochemical level. That fruit is pomegranate. And what is happening inside it and inside your body after you eat it is far more interesting than most people realize. To understand why blueberries matter so deeply for an aging brain, we have to move past the surface level idea that they are simply healthy fruit and instead look at what they actually do once they enter the body and reach the brain itself. Because what happens after consumption is not random nutrition support. It is targeted biological activity at the level of brain signaling, blood flow, and gene expression. The key compounds in blueberries are called anthocyanins. These belong to a broader family of plant chemicals known as flavonoids, which are especially important because of one rare ability. They can cross the blood-brain barrier. This barrier is extremely selective. It protects the brain by blocking toxins, pathogens, and many circulating compounds in the blood. Most dietary molecules never pass through it. They are broken down, filtered, or eliminated before ever reaching brain tissue. But anthocyanins are different. Once they cross into the brain, they begin interacting with multiple systems that directly influence cognition, memory, and neuronal resilience. One of the most important findings in modern nutrition neuroscience comes from long-term population research published in Neurology by the American Academy of Neurology. In this large observational study, tracking dietary patterns over many years, researchers found that individuals who regularly consume flavonoid-rich foods, especially blueberries, blackberries, and cherries, showed a significantly lower rate of cognitive decline. In fact, higher intake of anthocyanin-rich foods was associated with up to a 24% reduction in risk of cognitive deterioration. Even more interesting is that the benefit was not limited to high doses. Even moderate intake, around half a serving per day, was linked to measurable improvements in brain aging markers. But the deeper story is not just risk reduction, it is what these compounds do inside the brain's structure. One of their most important effects is the upregulation of BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF functions like a biological growth signal for the brain. It supports the survival of neurons, encourages the formation of new synaptic connections, and strengthens existing communication pathways between brain cells. Without sufficient BDNF, learning slows, memory formation weakens, and the brain becomes less adaptable. This is especially critical in the hippocampus, a region deeply involved in memory formation and one of the first areas affected in Alzheimer's disease. Research shows that blueberry compounds can increase hippocampal BDNF levels, effectively supporting the brain's ability to maintain and rebuild memory networks. In simpler terms, blueberries help create a biochemical environment where the brain is more capable of learning and less vulnerable to decline. But this is not where the evidence ends. A 2023 study published in Frontiers in Psychology examined older adults with mild cognitive impairment who were given polyphenol-rich blueberry and grape extracts. Over time, these participants showed measurable improvements in episodic memory, the type of memory responsible for recalling personal experiences and recent events. Researchers linked these improvements to changes in neuronal signaling pathways, including CREB, a protein involved in converting short-term memories into long-term storage. In another clinical trial published in Nutritional Neuroscience in 2022, regular consumption of wild blueberries improved processing speed in older adults with early cognitive decline. This means participants were not just remembering better, they were thinking faster. Additional findings from the University of Cincinnati showed similar patterns in individuals with insulin resistance, a condition strongly associated with increased risk of dementia. In these participants, blueberry intake improved memory performance and supported better mitochondrial efficiency, suggesting that the benefits extend beyond the brain and into overall metabolic health. Now, what makes blueberries especially powerful is not only what they do, but when they do it. The brain does not process information uniformly throughout the day. Memory consolidation primarily happens during sleep, especially during slow wave and REM cycles. This is when the brain takes the experiences of the day and organizes them into long-term memory networks. Anthocyanins do not act instantly. After consumption, they require time for absorption, circulation, and brain uptake. Research indicates that the peak effects on cerebral blood flow and neuronal activity occur roughly 1.5 to 2 hours after ingestion. This timing is crucial. When blueberries are consumed about 90 minutes to 2 hours before sleep, their peak biological activity aligns with the brain's natural memory consolidation phase. In other words, you are not just eating a nutrient, you are synchronizing it with a biological process already happening inside your brain. The practical application is simple but important. A moderate serving around half a cup to 1 cup of fresh or frozen blueberries is sufficient to activate these pathways. Frozen blueberries are not inferior. In some cases, they may even contain higher antioxidant stability due to being frozen at peak ripeness. They can be eaten on their own or combined with plain Greek yogurt, which adds tryptophan and beneficial gut bacteria that further support sleep and brain chemistry. They can also be blended into a simple smoothie with unsweetened plant milk and greens. However, one critical point must be emphasized. Blueberry products with added sugar, such as jams, sweetened yogurts, or flavored desserts, can undermine these benefits. Excess sugar before bed can elevate blood glucose, increase cortisol activity, and disrupt sleep architecture, which directly interferes with the brain's overnight repair processes. The goal is not sweetness. The goal is clean, bioavailable anthocyanins delivered at the right time. Because when timed correctly, blueberries do not just support general health, they actively participate in the brain's nightly memory building process. And while blueberries focus heavily on memory, blood flow, and neurotrophic support, the next fruit works in a very different but equally important direction. It does not primarily target memory systems. It targets sleep itself, and that makes it foundational. That fruit is kiwi. If blueberries are about memory and neural signaling, then kiwi fruit works at a deeper foundation level because before the brain can repair memory, improve cognition, or clear toxins, it first has to enter the right state of repair. That state is deep, high-quality sleep. And this is where most of the brain's nightly recovery either succeeds or fails, because sleep is not a single uniform process. It is a carefully structured sequence of stages, and the most important of these for brain detoxification and repair is slow-wave deep sleep. This is when the brain's glymphatic system becomes most active, flushing out metabolic waste and clearing proteins that are strongly associated with neurodegenerative disease. Without sufficient deep sleep, this cleaning process is incomplete. Over time, waste proteins such as amyloid beta and tau can accumulate, which are closely linked to cognitive decline and Alzheimer's pathology. So the real question is not just how long do you sleep, but how effectively do you reach deep sleep and stay there long enough for the brain to complete its maintenance cycle. And this becomes more difficult with age. After 60, melatonin production naturally declines. Melatonin is the hormone that regulates sleep onset and circadian rhythm alignment. By the time many people reach their late 60s or 70s, melatonin levels can be significantly lower than in younger adulthood. This reduction makes it harder to fall asleep quickly, maintain uninterrupted sleep, and reach sufficient slow-wave sleep stages. When melatonin is low, the entire sleep architecture becomes weaker. The brain spends less time in deep restorative phases and more time in lighter, fragmented sleep. As a result, overnight repair processes become incomplete. This is exactly where kiwi fruit becomes scientifically interesting. Kiwi contains naturally occurring melatonin, along with measurable levels of serotonin, which is its direct biochemical precursor. It also contains tryptophan, phenylalanine, and other amino acids that are essential for producing key neurotransmitters involved in relaxation and sleep regulation. In simple terms, kiwi provides both the raw materials and supportive compounds that help the brain transition into sleep more effectively. But what makes it even more compelling is that these effects are not just theoretical. A study published in Frontiers in Nutrition in 2023 found that adults who consumed kiwi fruit in the evening showed improvements in sleep quality, mood, and sleep continuity. Researchers observed increases in metabolites associated with both serotonin and melatonin pathways, suggesting that kiwi actively influences the biochemical systems that regulate sleep. Participants who consumed kiwi regularly experienced fewer nighttime awakenings and reported feeling more refreshed in the morning. Another key finding from this research was that kiwi appears to influence the timing of sleep onset. In other words, it helps the body transition into sleep more efficiently, reducing the time it takes to fall asleep. This is significant because delayed sleep onset often shortens total deep sleep time, even if total hours in bed remain the same. There is also an enzymatic component worth noting. Kiwi contains an enzyme called actinidin, which improves protein digestion and may enhance the absorption of amino acids in the gut. This is important because amino acids like tryptophan are precursors for serotonin and melatonin production. Better absorption means more efficient conversion into sleep-related neurotransmitters. A study involving elite athletes further reinforced these findings. Participants who consumed 2 kiwi fruits approximately 1 hour before bedtime experienced measurable improvements in sleep quality, sleep duration, and next day recovery. Another long-term nutritional study published in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that regular kiwi consumption increased time spent in slow-wave deep sleep, the exact stage responsible for brain detoxification, memory consolidation, and cellular repair. This is where everything connects, because kiwi does not just help you fall asleep faster, it helps improve the quality of the sleep that follows. And when sleep quality improves, a cascade of neurological processes becomes more effective. As melatonin rises, the circadian system signals the body to enter deeper rest. As deep sleep begins, the glymphatic system activates, flushing out waste products from brain tissue. At the same time, the hippocampus consolidates new memories, transferring them from short-term storage into long-term networks. This is not separate activity. It is a synchronized biological sequence. Eat kiwi before bed. Serotonin increases, melatonin production improves deep sleep, becomes more stable, brain detoxification, activates memory consolidation, strengthens cognitive clarity, improves the next day. Each step depends on the one before it. And this is why timing matters so much. Kiwi is most effective when consumed approximately 1 hour before sleep, giving the body time to absorb its compounds and convert them into sleep-supporting neurochemistry right as the sleep cycle begins. For most people, 2 medium kiwis is an effective and practical dose. Some even include the skin, which contains additional fiber and polyphenols, although this depends on personal tolerance. It can also be paired with small amounts of other sleep-supporting foods, such as tart cherries, to further enhance melatonin-related effects. But the most important takeaway is simple. Kiwi is not just a fruit that helps you sleep. It is a food that directly influences the biological systems responsible for sleep architecture itself. And when sleep architecture improves, everything that depends on it, memory, detoxification, repair, and brain resilience improves as well. Now, once sleep is stabilized and properly supported, the next question becomes what happens when these fruits are combined together as a system rather than used individually? Because the brain does not operate in isolated pathways. It operates as an integrated network, and that is where the real synergy begins. Up to this point, we have looked at 3 different fruits as separate tools acting on different systems of the aging brain. But the real science becomes even more interesting when you stop viewing them individually and start understanding what happens when they are combined within the same narrow biological window before sleep. Because the brain does not run on isolated pathways. It runs on interconnected systems that constantly influence each other: sleep chemistry, metabolic function, inflammation control, mitochondrial health, and gut-brain signaling all operate at the same time. When you align the right nutrients with the brain's natural nighttime repair cycle, You are not just supporting one function, you are amplifying multiple systems simultaneously. Let's start with the simplest layer of this interaction, timing. In the 2 hours before sleep, the brain is already preparing for maintenance mode. The glymphatic system is gearing up to clear metabolic waste. Hormonal signals are shifting toward melatonin dominance. Neural activity begins slowing, and the brain transitions from external processing to internal repair. This is the window where nutrition stops being about energy and becomes about signaling. Now imagine introducing three specific biological inputs into this window. First, kiwi fruit begins the process by supporting the serotonin to melatonin pathway. This helps stabilize sleep onset and improves the likelihood of entering deep, uninterrupted sleep. Without this step, the rest of the repair cycle becomes weaker or fragmented. Second, blueberries introduce anthocyanins that cross the blood-brain barrier and begin influencing neuronal activity. These compounds support cerebral blood flow and help elevate BDNF levels, which are essential for synaptic plasticity and memory consolidation. But importantly, this does not peak immediately, it rises gradually, aligning with the brain's transition into deeper sleep stages. Third, pomegranate introduces L-glutanins that are converted by gut bacteria into urolithin A, a compound strongly associated with mitochondrial quality control and mitophagy. This process does not occur in the bloodstream alone. It unfolds over several hours, meaning its peak activity often overlaps with the early stages of sleep, exactly when cellular cleanup processes are most active. What you have now is not three separate benefits, but a coordinated biological sequence. Sleep is stabilized first, then memory systems are supported, then cellular cleanup is enhanced. And this sequencing matters because if sleep is poor, neither mitochondrial repair nor memory consolidation can function efficiently. If inflammation is high, sleep architecture becomes unstable. If gut microbiome signaling is weak, neurochemical production becomes less effective. Everything is linked. This is where the gut-brain axis becomes especially important. Your gut is not just a digestive system, it is a major neurochemical production site. A large portion of serotonin is produced in the gut, not the brain. Gut bacteria also generate metabolites that influence inflammation levels, mitochondrial efficiency, and even mood regulation. When you consume polyphenol-rich fruits like pomegranate and blueberries, you are not just feeding your body, you are reshaping your gut microbiome in real time. Certain beneficial bacterial strains thrive on these compounds and convert them into bioactive molecules that circulate through the body, eventually influencing brain function during sleep. At the same time, these polyphenols reduce harmful inflammatory signaling. And this matters because chronic low-grade inflammation in the brain is now recognized as one of the major underlying drivers of cognitive decline, not aging itself, but inflammatory stress accelerating neural damage. Now, consider what happens when inflammation is reduced, sleep quality improves, and mitochondrial cleanup is activated simultaneously. The brain is no longer operating in a state of passive decline. It is actively engaging in repair cycles that were previously suppressed or inefficient. But there is another layer here that is often overlooked: mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the energy centers of brain cells. Every thought, memory, and cognitive process depends on their ability to produce efficient energy. Over time, damaged mitochondria accumulate, producing oxidative stress instead of clean energy. This is where compounds like urolithin A become important. By supporting mitophagy, the removal of damaged mitochondria, you are essentially helping the brain reset its cellular energy systems during sleep. Now connect all of this together. Kiwi supports sleep initiation and melatonin production. Blueberries enhance memory consolidation and neuronal signaling. Pomegranate supports mitochondrial cleanup and inflammation control. Three fruits, three different systems, one synchronized biological window, and this synchronization aligns perfectly with the brain's natural overnight cycle. Deep sleep activates the glymphatic system, clearing waste from brain tissue. The hippocampus consolidates memories from the day. Mitochondria undergo repair and recycling. Neurochemical systems reset for the next day. When supported properly, this process becomes more efficient and more complete. But when disrupted by poor sleep, inflammation, or metabolic imbalance, the brain begins to accumulate inefficiencies over time. These inefficiencies do not appear overnight. They build slowly, often over years, eventually manifesting as brain fog, memory lapses, or reduced cognitive speed. This is why timing and consistency matter more than occasional dietary changes. The real effect comes from repeated alignment with the body's natural repair window. Now, it is also important to address something practical. These fruits are not magical cures. They are not reversing advanced neurological disease on their own. Instead, they are supporting the biological systems that determine how efficiently the brain maintains itself over time. That distinction is critical. What we are really discussing is not treatment, it is optimization of existing repair mechanisms. And this brings us to the final step, how to apply all of this in a realistic, sustainable way. Because understanding the science is one thing, using it consistently in daily life is what actually produces results. Now, let's bring everything together into a clear, practical conclusion, because understanding the science only becomes meaningful when it translates into something you can actually apply in real life. At this point, the core idea should be clear. The brain does not randomly decline overnight, and it does not repair itself randomly either. It follows a structured biological rhythm that repeats every single night. And the quality of that rhythm depends heavily on what signals you give your body before sleep. After the age of 60, this becomes even more important because the brain's natural support systems gradually weaken, BDNF levels decline, glymphatic clearance becomes less efficient, mitochondrial damage accumulates faster, and sleep architecture becomes more fragile due to reduced melatonin production. These changes do not mean the brain stops working. They mean it becomes more dependent on external support to function optimally. And this is where the three fruits we discussed come together as a complete system rather than separate ideas. Blueberries, pomegranate, and kiwi each influence a different layer of brain function. Blueberries primarily support memory and cognitive signaling. Their anthocyanins cross the blood-brain barrier and influence BDNF, cerebral blood flow, and synaptic plasticity. This helps the brain form and stabilize new memories, especially during sleep, when consolidation is at its peak. Pomegranate works more deeply at the cellular level. Its allogentanins are converted by gut bacteria into urolithin A, which supports mitophagy, the removal of damaged mitochondria. This process reduces cellular stress and helps maintain cleaner, more efficient energy production in brain cells, which is essential for long-term cognitive resilience. Kiwi operates at the foundation level of sleep itself. By supporting serotonin and melatonin pathways, it helps the brain transition into deep, stable sleep. This is the stage where the glymphatic system becomes most active, clearing metabolic waste and allowing memory consolidation and cellular repair to take place efficiently. When combined, these three fruits do not compete with each other. They complement each other in a very specific biological sequence. First, kiwi improves sleep initiation and stability. Then, blueberries enhance brain activity related to memory consolidation and neural communication. Finally, pomegranate supports overnight cellular cleanup and mitochondrial repair during deep sleep cycles. This sequence aligns directly with how the brain naturally operates during the night. Deep sleep activates the glymphatic system, clearing waste such as amyloid, beta, and tau proteins. The hippocampus organizes and stores the day's memories. Mitochondria undergo repair and recycling processes that restore cellular energy efficiency. Neurochemical systems reset to prepare for the next day's cognitive demands. When these processes are supported rather than disrupted, the brain functions more efficiently over time. When they are disrupted repeatedly, small inefficiencies accumulate and gradually appear as cognitive slowing, forgetfulness, or mental fatigue. This is why consistency is more important than intensity. The benefit does not come from eating these fruits once, but from repeatedly aligning your evening routine with your brain's natural repair cycle. A simple and realistic protocol would look like this. Consume kiwi approximately 1 hour before bed to support sleep onset and melatonin production. Include blueberries in the same evening window to support memory consolidation and brain signaling during early sleep phases. Add pomegranate within the 2-hour pre-sleep window to support gut-mediated production of urolithin A and enhance mitochondrial repair during the night. It does not need to be complicated. It does not need to be excessive. It simply needs to be consistent and aligned with your biology. And it is also important to keep expectations realistic. These foods are not treatments for advanced neurological disease, nor are they instant fixes for long term cognitive decline. Instead, they are tools that support the brain's existing ability to maintain and repair itself. Their value comes from long term reinforcement of healthy biological processes, not short term dramatic changes. Finally, there is one key takeaway that matters more than anything else. Your brain is not passively aging in isolation, it is actively responding to your daily habits, especially your nighttime routine. Every evening is an opportunity to either support or disrupt the biological systems that determine how your brain functions over time. Even small, consistent changes can have meaningful effects when they align with the body's natural repair mechanisms. So, tonight, instead of thinking about complicated supplements or overwhelming health protocols, the approach can be simple: one fruit, 1 hour before sleep, consistently repeated, because over time, those small decisions accumulate into meaningful neurological impact. And if this understanding has given you a new perspective on how brain health actually works, then the next step is simple: apply it, observe it, and refine it based on your own experience. Now, let's finish this with everything you need for your video.